Good morning, folks. That was Narayan and Jen, and I wanted to play that little clip. And on that CD, they've got 3 parts to that first song. But I wanted to play the first part because it led into the other part about connection. And like I said earlier, we're in the month where the theme is love as safety, and this week it's about the perfect relationship. Now, sometimes I think we hear that word and it's like, or that phrase, and it's like, there's no such thing, you know. But there is. Well, in my opinion, there is. Life itself is one big relationship. Because we're constantly in relationship with, one thing, with ourselves, or we should be anyway. Sometimes we may want to divorce ourselves and not be part of that process. And then with everyone here, we're in relationship, like today, when we're together. We're in relationship with our family, even whether they're here or distant. You know, there's a relationship with our friends, our co-workers, your beloved, your pets. I mean, some people, that's a very powerful and strong relationship. Particularly, I think, sometimes when people get older, and like they found, like in the homes where people are, that if they have a pet, and I think a lot of times cats are better than dogs because you don't have to walk the cat. But you know, there's that connection and that feeling of I guess it's love, coming and returning it to something other than yourselves. And then there's always that relationship that we have with the world around us, like nature itself, like the earth. The relationship hasn't been going too well lately, we could say. Like the earth is, and nature is kind of fighting back. It feels like, you know, in some ways with the fires and the hurricanes and floods and earthquakes. There have been some earthquakes. And then, you know, then there's, like I said, with life itself, we have a constant relationship. Whether we want it, or whether we cherish it, whether we do anything about it, we are in relationship with life. We're here, you know, and so that is a huge, to me, a huge thing. And Earnest Holmes said in the Science of Mind, if one sees only unloveliness in others, it is because unloveliness is a strong element in themselves. The light they throw on others is generated in their soul and sees them as they choose to see them. So, we always say that others' actions and stuff, and others are a reflection of our own selves, or something that we maybe don't like in ourselves. And so we need to create that perfect relationship with ourselves first of all. Because like I always say, life is an inside job. And this, I mean, everything I could run across seems like supports that. Like, to be loved, you need to love yourself. You know, you need to be able to love yourself and accept yourself, and you know, there's that respecting and honoring and all that before you can do that to others. And so, and then that divine connection, that divine relationship within us, the divine that lives within us, we need to nourish and to accept that instead of the what I was raised with is, you know, the God out there and not the God within. That was never brought up in my training in Lutheran grade school or beyond. There was always, you know, the God out there. But there's that God within that we need to develop, and this relationship. And it seems like we're always looking for happiness, you know, out there. Somebody else is going to make us happy. If we have the right job, if we have the right partner, if we have, you know, the right car, all these different things, then my life, then I'll be happy. However, we should not, I know there's not a lot of shoulds, but we should not rely on people to define our happiness. Because happiness, it comes from within, like that joy that comes in, and you just feel it. And the happiness, there's no other way to get it but yourself. You know, and not allow, because if others are going to make us happy, then we're allowing others to make us sad and angry and all these different things. And actually, they're not doing it. You know, we're doing it to ourselves. They can trigger, which there are a lot of triggers around. Believe me, in this day and age, there are an extreme amount of triggers. However, it's how we react to those triggers that counts. Because because if you take in, you allow all this stuff to happen, to take it all in and read everything and all the negative, then you're going to end up with like what you were going through. Maybe stress is causing that. Maybe anxiety. I know when I get anxious, and I was talking about this the other day, that sometimes I don't know what causes it, but all of a sudden I get this, and I really do not like that. That is the one feeling that to me is so uncomfortable, being anxious, because I'm just like, I want to jump out of my skin. But what is causing that? And that's something, I'm allowing something to irritate, to bother, to disrupt that divine flow of relationship between me and the divine. And everything is in perfect relationship. Sometimes it may not seem that way. There are things that happen, there are people that show up, and things going on, and you know, it's not right. You know, that relationship is not, it's not that cohesive relationship. It's a bitter, angry relationship, and we really don't want to be in relationship with those people. However, we are connected, you know. Like the song says, we are connected. And the more we allow others to determine how we feel, how we act, it's going to cause trouble for ourselves. I know years ago, today's the anniversary of the 29th anniversary of my mother's death. And it doesn't seem, I mean, 29 years, that's like a lifetime in some ways. And for a lot of years, we did not have a good relationship. Part of that was I held her, I guess, quote unquote, responsible for my coming into this world the way I did, and all these things in my life. And so, but there were times in high school when we got along because we had to work together to hold the family together, because my stepfather would be out on a binge somewhere. And so it seemed like when chaos happened, that's when, you know, and that happens sometimes in relationships. Other stuff outside will happen, but that will draw other people together, closer. Well, then for several years after I went in the Navy, and part of it was my consuming the alcohol, and so, you know, get into pity pot, you know, alcohol is great for pity pots, you know. And I think everybody should have a pity pot. You know, every once in a while, I think we need a pity pot, you know, just to get it out of our system. But don't sit there. Don't, otherwise it's going to get stuck, you know, and you're on that forever. But what was happening later on, after I had gotten sober, I would go back and visit. And one of my friends said, well, why don't you go on a vacation, you know, for yourself, and blah, 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 do this, do that. And I said, you know, this is for myself. Most of the time when I went back there was nothing really, sometimes an event or whatever, but most of the time it was just to visit. And so we reconnected. And the relationship may not have always been what I picture or what I would like, But the relationship, you know, nothing really needs to be healed, but in a sense it was healed. And my partner at the time said, you know, you shouldn't have any regrets. And I said, I don't. You know, I don't, because we moved through and beyond the crap that was in the way. And so that was a good thing. And that can happen. I love this other quote by Earnest Holmes from the book Living the Science of Mind. Is, if the philosophy of Christianity were lived, I like if the philosophy of Christianity was lived, wars would cease, unhappiness would cease, economic problems would be solved, poverty would be wiped from the face of the earth, and man's inhumanity to man would be transmuted into a spirit of mutual helpfulness. And I like that last phrase, the spirit of mutual helpfulness. And I think, isn't that, well, it's my belief and my maybe wishful thinking that we all want that. We all want the best for all human beings. Sometimes that does not seem true. I'm not going to go there. So easy to go there. I mean, it is so easy right now to follow that squirrel, you know, and beat that squirrel to death. But what good is that doing me? What good is that? What good does it do? Sometimes they're right. Get the pity pot, you know, spew it out, get it over with, you know, move on. But yeah, if we follow that damn squirrel, and then we're not focused on what we're here to do and entering into that spirit of mutual helpfulness. It's just crazy sometimes. And through relationships, that's how we're all connected. And relationships, the definition, in relation with, you know, and so many times we think that only means, you know, a sexual relationship or a loving, or like marriage or whatever, but it's not. It's everyday interchange. You're in a relationship with a person that checks you out at the store, whether they're in a good mood or not, or whether you're in a good mood or not. You're connecting, and that to me is, I mean, I believe that everyone, no matter how shy, how withdrawn, or whatever, they want that connection. They want to belong. They want to be part of. And when we're in relationship, that is the thing that I think that everyone craves in this life. I found out to me one of the biggest things in a relationship of any sort is listening. Listening. And not only listening with, you know, these things, because sometimes what's going on between these things, you know, you're not listening, but also listening with the heart. Because sometimes you hear more with the heart than you do with the ears. And there's also listening with the eyes. Because if you're with somebody and they may be speaking something out to you, yet what they're saying and how their body is acting, that's not what's happening. So if you're listening, if you're observing and being a witness to that person in all ways, then you can see and say, you know, I noticed, you know, maybe something else is going on. Because they want to share, but sometimes they're in fear of sharing. Because sometimes when we speak the truth of what's going on, it can scare others away. I have found that because before Reverend Vaughn and I were together, I would meet these guys, and there was one in particular that we were connecting, and then all of a sudden I didn't hear anything, and so I called and said, there was something I said, and it was the word God, you know, that scared him away. Okay, well then you know. But if the thing is, sometimes it depends on, we have to be, I think, careful when we speak the truth, not necessarily our truth. Like I saw something the other day, I forgot where it was I think it was online or something, and they said that they were in the doghouse. Oh, no, it was on television, okay. It was, they had been married, and he said, I'm in the doghouse because my wife asked me, she got a new hairdo and asked me how I liked it. And he told her the truth. He did like it. And that's like, oh, sometimes that kind of truth is, that's not good in a relationship. I did the same thing with a person I used to work with at Boeing. She asked how I liked her haircut, and I said, I don't, you know. Didn't beat around the bush, but she was not too happy with it. You know, there's other ways of doing it, you know, or saying things. But the listening and then speaking, when we speak our own truth, we own that. That's ours. You know, when something's going on in our life, something that we want to share, that is our truth. And the idea, what I love in the community share here, no matter how many people we have, there's always people that are willing to open up, to be vulnerable. To me, that's being very vulnerable. Many years ago, I would never have done anything like that, because I mean, you're opening up, you're letting some little walls. If you have walls, I know some people don't. I do. Those walls sometimes can really pop up quicker than a spring, you know. But to let people in sometimes is not an easy thing to do. But it is helpful. Pamela and I were at a minister's workshop for 2 days this week. It's exhausting, you know, sitting. It's exhausting, you know. Yeah, to me, sometimes that's more exhausting than getting out there and doing actual physical labor. Well, plus you're going and you're sharing stuff that you really sometimes, you know, you need to share it, but it's really, it's hard to share. And that's what one of the things I did share was about the community share that we have, and to be a safe environment. And that is one thing I've always wanted for this place, this space, to be safe. And where we were on this week, and that place was a safe environment to actually open up with other ministers, to share some certain things that were going on. Because there were some things that people shared that were powerful. I was amazed. And then through that, all that, they said one thing you got out of this toward the end, and I said that I realized I'm not alone. And sometimes we feel so alone because certain things in our life or just circumstances, nobody else has got that. And they may not have the exact same thing, but they may have the same feelings that are going on, the same results, you know. So we are not alone in this world. And that's one thing about the community share that we can ask for prayer support. And sometimes if it might be a little delicate, we do have the forms that we can fill out, or one-on-one person, you know. So sometimes when we're in relationship, whatever that may be, we expect a lot of things. And expectation is a dangerous thing. Because we each have our own beliefs, our own thoughts, our own value system. And sometimes, and I know I shared this before, that a friend of mine when I was in AA years ago in this one group, we would do things together, go places. And I realized, I said one time, I said, you know, I always thought that if I didn't agree with you, that I was wrong. You know, because I didn't agree with his ideas, his beliefs, or whatever he had said, that I was the one that's wrong. Well, a lot of that comes from my growing up, you know, always being wrong. And he laughed. And I didn't take it, you know, I thought about it and I said, well, you know, that really is funny. It's silly. It's silly more than funny. You know, because indeed we all have our own beliefs and our own values, and so we need to allow others in the relationship to have those, and not judge them so much. And sometimes if we just listen. I know I've done this in the past. I don't agree with someone, but I listen to what they have to say, and it might change my way of thinking, or I might say, oh, okay, I understand. But I don't have to change and I don't have to force somebody to change their way of thinking. I can explain my way of thinking to them, and we can honor each other. And so that's all part of relationship. And then yesterday Vaughn and I were at the Northwest Conference. It's a 10th annual conference on teaching social justice over here. And that was really exhausting too. But there was all these, I don't know how many people there, 1,200? It was just, I mean, it was packed. It was over at the one high school, and all these people getting together for basically one reason, you know, so that they can learn things and carry those things into the classrooms or wherever they were taking them. I'm not taking it to the classroom, but in a sense this is a classroom. But to open up and to listen to what people brought to the conference, it's amazing, you know. We went to 3 workshops, and I have to go good, and 2 were good. I'll just leave it. And one, okay, I'll be honest, was not what I expected. I expected something different. So my expectations were out the window, because it wasn't what I expected. I don't know, I think it was what either one of us expected. But, you know, just allow others to have their beliefs, their saying, and whatever, and we don't have to agree. And a lot of times there's that saying, we can agree to disagree.
Yes.
But if we listen, that is to me the one of the, if the whole world just listened once in a while to each other, instead of somebody opens their mouth and you've already got the problem solved before they have explained what actually is going on. And that's why in practitioner training, it's highly stressed that yes, you pay attention to what the person is saying. You don't try to fix the problem because you're not trying to fix them. And listening is such a powerful tool. Take the wax out. They had to have new things for your ears now. It takes more wax out, which is good. So, to summarize, it's just, you know, if you're in a relationship, whatever it is, whether it's your personal one, your marriage, whatever, you know, between colleagues at work, or if you're in practice for a future relationship, you know, because there's always another one coming around the bend, you know. Might be a new job, might be a new encounter with someone. Should treat your spouse, your friend, your coworker, whoever that may be, as if, I love this, as if you love them with your last breath. Now that can be hard sometimes. No matter what, or no matter how contrary to that you might feel at any moment, because that's a lot of times we don't want it. We don't want to love them with that, like it was our last breath. We want to slap them, maybe, you know. Which that does not do well. Think every day about how you can make their life worth living. And I love this last one. It's be the kind of person that you want to love, you want to hug, come home to, or sacrifice for. There's that saying, be or become the love you want to see in the world. And so be that person in all your relationships. It depends on the extremes you want to go to. You know, in the store, it's you know, your checkers. Just be cordial. I mean, that's being loving. Being nice to somebody is being loving. Being kind to somebody is being loving. So in those relationships, we build on them. And I have an affirmation, which you'll also get tomorrow. I'll read it through first, and then we can read it together. I live in the faith that there is a presence and power greater than I am, that nurtures and supports me, in ways I could never even imagine. I know that this presence is all-knowing and all-powerful, and is always right where I am. Okay, we read together.
I live in the faith that there is a presence and power greater than I am, that nurtures and supports me in ways I could not even imagine. I know that there is a presence that is all-knowing and all-powerful, and is always right where I am.
And so it is.
So it is.